grab your apron, pull your hair up, and let's all bake something together this week. So grab your favorite bread recipe. You can grab some that I've shared out with you here, or pull out your favorite recipe book, and let's bake some amazing tasting breads together. Now remember, even if we're making a different type of traditional bread, this is a traditional bread that I'm doing today. So whether you are doing one of our quickie yeast breads or you are doing a full traditional bread, my friend, apply the same basic principles to baking your bread that I'm doing right here today. Pull out your baking supplies and let's get started baking together this week. All right, my friend, do you have your dry ingredients in? Okay, let's move on to the next step. So remember, only start with your 3 cups of your main flour to begin with and add any additional grains. If you're doing a multi-grain, go ahead and get those in and add your sugars and your fats. Now, if you like to measure the way I do, this equals 2 tablespoons of your fats. So measure out how many you need. Mix your fats in. Remember, use the back of your spoon to make it super easy peasy and keep your cleanup as simple as possible, my friend. Don't forget to make your yeast starter. So get your water good and warm between 120 to 130 degrees. And then add your yeast to 1.5 cups of water and add a little bit of a sweetener with it. Give it a good mix and sit back and wait and watch the magic happen. And at this point, the yeast starter's in and we are doing our pre-proofing. You want to know what happens when you walk away from a pre-starter for just a few too many minutes too long? It tries to overflow on you. So, without further ado, let's get the rest of our grains in here, start mixing it up, and then knead your bread. If you're making a whole wheat or a half wheat bread, my friend, knead your bread for 10 minutes. 10 minutes is that secret number that just makes all the magic happen and ensures your bread is going to bake up properly and it's going to raise just right. Now, whether I'm baking up here at the counter or I'm baking the breads on my kitchen table, which is where I used to always do it, I've always used a stool or a chair off to the side of me to hold my flour. It keeps it right there at hand, but when I'm moving around, as you do when you're making breads, I'm not going to accidentally bump it with an elbow and knock it off on the floor, creating this great big huge mess. Done that many times. Or when your kids are around, such as when they're little, like my 2 toddlers, yeah, they like to get up in the middle of everything, and having it just off to the side keeps it out of their reach as much, but it still keeps it in the corner of your eye, so when they do start getting into it, you are fully aware of it, my friend. So if you've been baking with me for a while, you know I always have my handy stool here, because this counter where I do all my recording at is too tall for me. So when I get to this point in the baking, too stiff to stir effectively. So we clean our spoon off. Make sure you remove any jewelry. Set it off to the side. Best of all, put it in your pocket so you don't accidentally lose it. Or knock it off on the floor. Put an additional cup of flour right on the side so that you can mix it in as you need it, as you're going, without having sticky fingers trying to reach into your flour bag. After this cup is mixed in, like your hands are going to be so much cleaner. But this first initial mixing, it's a little bit messy, but it's so much fun. Now this is the part where a lot of people truly discover if they like making handmade breads. If you have a problem with getting your hands all sticky, this is not the right type of training for you. So this is just so therapeutic to me. So yes, my hands are a little messy, but you know what? It's so easy to clean up. All you have to do is rub your hands together. That's it. And if it's still a little too sticky, take that extra flour you have sitting there and just dust your hands with the flour and simply rub your hands together. It cleans the dough right off because the dough wants to stick to each other. Beautiful, beautiful. So, how do you know that your bread is done? Okay, there's a couple things that you need to know, my friend. So, one, I want you to look for a good solid rip that starts to form every time you knead until it happens all the way around for a full rotation of this dough as you're kneading and working it. Look for that beautiful rip. Let me show you. Do you see that rip? And again, this is ripping beautifully, but it's a little too sticky, which means I don't have enough flour in it as of yet. So we've got to have that moisture content correct within that good little secret. Inside of that perfect little area. So I'm going to continue to mix this for a little bit longer. Adding this last cup of flour, but I don't want to push it past that because if I continue to knead it, even though it needs a little more flour, it's going to turn my dough stiff, and the stiffer your dough gets, the faster it dries out. You don't want your bread to dry out. Homemade bread already dries out way too fast. So use caution as you continue to add more flour to this, okay? Very important. So you just put the oil right on top. Use the oil of your choice. Honey, for doing this. No. Flip it around and continue to work it until your dough will just slide around in the oil that's in your pan and it's fully coated. Put a cover on this and put it in a warm place to raise. If you have lots of help like I do, I highly suggest putting it in a proof setting on your oven. Okay, the proofing is done. You want to see what it looks like? Let me show you. Look at that beautiful proof. It raised up beautifully. Now it's time to get this rolled out. To grease our pans and to get it raising again. All right, my friends. So now it's time to get our bread raising for the final time. This is the final bread proofing we're going to do. Now I like to raise my oven on a pre-proofing setting. You, my friend, you do you. So make sure it's warm and cover them up, or make sure you have lots of moisture in your oven. It's all raised up. It's time to get it baking. Kick your oven on to its needed temperature for your recipe. And I suggest starting your bake-off at 20 minutes and adding a little extra time as needed. Do you want to know the best way to know when your bread is actually done, my friend? Use your nose. Simple as that. When you can smell that crispy bake of bread cooking in the oven, it's a pretty good indication that your bread is done. So let's see how our bread is actually looking. Sounds pretty good. Now, yeah, that's pretty close. But these sides, they're a little too soft. So yes, technically this bread is done, but this needs to go back in the oven and crisp up just a little bit, which means I need to rotate my loaves around. You need that good crisp on the outside of your bread in order to really have it store really efficiently for you. So homemade bread only keeps for about 3 to 4 days if you keep it in your cupboards. If you want to fully utilize that time, you want to have that good crust on there, because it's going to help work to protect your actual dough from going bad. And who can resist that crispy crunch of a good crispy crust? All right, so first thing, oh, that's a beautiful crust. And let's get it out of our pans. If you use a pot of hot water in the oven, like I do, to help get that good hard crust on your bread, and to keep it moist while it's still raising and in the early stages of baking, don't forget to pull it out of your oven when you get done. It's very easy to forget that it's in the oven, and then the next time you kick your oven on, that pan's gonna burn up in your oven. Don't do that, my friend. But you know what? We have just again had another successful bake, and this smells absolutely heavenly yummy, and I'm so excited for this bread to cool down so I can slice into it. Until next week, my friends, I hope you enjoy this.